Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the Santa Claus of business coaching. Don't call him a Grinch. The man on a mission, the wizard, the king, the man on top of the hill, Mr. Karl Bryan. I really need some more sound effects. I need like the hands clapping and woo-woo. Like I need that stuff.
You know, you're getting more dramatic, Shoots. You're getting more dramatic, man. I like it. You're gonna get scooped up by the radio stations, man, if we're not careful. I love it.
Listen, but I'm just auditioning for the Joe Rogan show.
Is that what's happening?
I don't know. He's that dude's making big moves. But anywho, so what's going on with you, big fella?
Not much, buddy. Ready to rock and roll, man. Looking forward to this and going for a few hours, man. So let's rock this thing, bud. How's that sound?
All right. Hey, listen, you were talking about mental models, which, I could go on a whole different tangent there, but we're going to hold off on that. You talked mental models. So we had a couple questions come in. It's actually a twofold question. So the first question is, which mental model has served you best when it comes to business coaching? So this is for your own business. And then the other part of that question is, which mental model has served your clients best? So kind of a two-pronged question. One, you in your business, in the business of coaching. And then the other question in terms of the actual business owner. So can you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, and I love it. Road Dog, no doubt, those listening. So for a number, I don't know, it was 3 weeks ago or whatever, we touched on this subject, and it looks like it's got some wheels. I do want to encourage everybody listening. Mental models, really about slowing down, but they provide insane amount of value for you, no doubt about that. But so serves best in business coaching, and then for clients, I'll tell you this, the one to avoid and the one to concern yourself with and your coaching clients with would be confirmation bias. You might have heard of expressed as cognitive dissonance. So you ever been on Facebook, right? And let's just assume we got a Trump or a Biden supporter, right? Not either or, not supporting anybody, right? But just you're supporting one of them, and then you see something, and you read the comments, and you think, oh my God, like these people are so lost, right? Like how could they not see in black and white, right there in front of them? So basically, what's happening is they have confirmation bias. So no matter what they see, it supports what they already thought, right? So forget Trump and Biden. Let's go to things like, okay, let's say you got a business owner and they have a staff member who's just been there forever and a day. And back in the day, they provided an insane amount of value. And then today it is glaringly obvious, but this person has not upped their skills and are really a little bit of a dinosaur within the office and really not providing the value. And it's certain, and it's not connected to the size of the paycheck that they're getting. That would be an example of where confirmation bias would do some damage. Or let's say that we had a radio advertising campaign that worked back in the day and crushed it, right? And then it's like, yeah, but it's no longer crushing it, right? Like, look at the stats, look at the data, and for some reason they just can't fall away from that radio ad. And again, we've all seen it in different, in different ways. Or Facebook would be maybe a better one. Again, it's got that sexy, delusional feel to it. Whether they've run the ads yet or not, it's like they feel like Facebook ads are going to be the solution to their world, right? It's like billions of people looking at it, yeti. Oh my God, if I just got a quarter of a percent, this is what it would look like. And the reality is they launched a Facebook ad. They're losing money hand over fist. And there could be significantly better ways. Like Road Dog, you and I just did our internal call, right, with the guys, and we were talking about, Facebook groups, right? And again, just Facebook groups could bring unbelievable value to your clients and to you. The problem is, and what I was saying earlier, is it's not for the faint of heart. You have got to be committed times, if not times 10, but times 1,000, times a million to that Facebook group. Otherwise, it's never really going to get any traction. And that's why most Facebook groups, they kind of fizzle out, because again, they're not for the faint of heart. You've really got to build that bad boy up. So that would be an example of that. So I want to make sure, again, remember, true mentors can tell you what not to do, not just what to do. I believe that's a very powerful statement. And you got to be able to do that for your clients. Helping them with confirmation bias be very, very powerful. I think, look, the best one, in my opinion, would be 80-20. And again, what is 80-20? I said it's about slowing down to make decisions, right? So, create some rules or create some hallways for yourself, right? So picture that, where before you make a decision, this is the process that you run it through, right? So before you go and, rip down to your computer and start working in the morning, you're thinking 80-20. And as you go to do something like check your email, check your phone, check social media, you're asking yourself, does this fall within 80-20, right? Is this going to be the 80% that's really going to provide me a lot of value? And you will find consistently throughout the day, you will stop doing things like grabbing your phone and then going, and what do? We grab our phone, we open it up, and then we go straight to Facebook, right? And the next thing you know, 15, 30, heavens, an hour plus can go, and you're just sitting there floating through looking at whatever the heck you're looking at, right? You want to be a creator, not a consumer. Thinking about that. But bottom line, 80-20, that one's super powerful. Warren Buffett, he's pretty much famous for circle of competence. And I think, again, for what we're doing, like, what is circle of competence? You don't have to be an expert in a lot of things. What you do need to be is you need to be an expert in what you need to be an expert at, right? Like, again, I understand, I think, business coaching at a pretty damn high level, but I can't hang a picture, right? So I'm not here trying to pretend like I'm a carpenter. I'm here, my business and my undertaking throughout the day for, let's call it 9 to 5. It's significantly longer than that, unfortunately. But, throughout my working day, my 10 to 12 hours in the office, I'm not spending it trying to become a carpenter, right? So that's, so I think that's important, just understanding, circle of competence. And by the way, when Warren Buffett explains it, he explains it differently than that, but it's like, you don't have to be able to evaluate every company. What you do need to be able to do is to evaluate the companies in your circle of competence and the ones that you would potentially buy, right? So that's what I said. Maybe recency. But speaking of Warren Buffett, his business partner Charlie Munger, who again would be the original gangster of mental models, I'd say. Like, he is. If you want to understand mental models, again, that Charlie Munger is the guy that I'd be going directly to, or advising you to go check out his material on it and what he says about it. But recency bias is one that, like, what does Charlie Munger say? That which is immediately available is overvalued. And I could be making a meal of that, but that's basically what recency bias is. This is why, as a business coach, when you run local live events, it's so it's because it's what's, what I mean? It's what's immediately available is just there. So again, yeah, it's overvalued. The statement says it all. In fact, another one, Road Dog, we just opened up our internal call here before we started the podcast. And one of our guys, like, he joined the Chamber of Commerce. We gave him a little bit of a strategy where he goes in as Santa Claus versus the Grinch. What I mean by that is you want to go in giving things away as opposed to trying to get, which is what I feel like 90% of the population does. But you want to go in there giving. Well, he's only been a member for 3 months. He's been giving. Again, just not long ago, I sent out an email about, winning a war. You don't win a war by looking at the entire battlefield and trying to win it all. You win the war by taking the battlefield, breaking it up into dozens and dozens of smaller little battlefields and going and winning that territory. So what he's done is he's gone into the Chamber of Commerce. He went in and he's just provided an insane amount of value. He's only been a member for 3 months and he got the Rookie of the Year award, right? So there's other members that have been there for an entire 12 months. He's only been for 3. and they gave him Rookie of the Year, right? And by the way, it sounds like he deserved it times 10, but there is no doubt because he was recency bias, because he's provided so much value over a shorter period, over a short period of time. He had stars all around his name, and bingo, bango, bongo, within 3 months of being a member, he wins Rookie of the Year, right? So that's debatably, but recency bias came into that decision. So that's one that I would, Charlie Munger would tell you that this is one that you need to be, wary of, and understanding what's going on, because that doesn't mean that things that are immediately available are not massively valuable, right? But you just need to understand that you'll be overvaluing them potentially. It's like McDonald's is on every single freaking corner stop, every corner, right? Well, magically you end up eating there a lot, right? Like it's immediately available. It's super easy. You go in, they've got the drive-through. You're like, God, did I feed the kids McDonald's again? But it just made sense. So that's what I'd say, Road Dog. Those are the mental models that I would say would, be kind of the creme de la creme. And just understanding mental models aren't just about, 80-20 and how to think, but it's also about, understanding where you need to be careful of, right? Like confirmation bias and recency bias. I think there's huge power in that. So hopefully that's helpful, Bud. What do you think?
That's nice. So listen, we've got a question here. Now, typically we get a lot just in terms of going out and getting clients, which typically tend to be smaller. Here, I'm going to give you some context around this. This is a question in regards to a company that, so the question is, what is great advice or direction for a larger coaching client? And they're saying here $10 million of revenue. So obviously a significant business. So maybe you can touch on some good advice or direction, and also how different really is a $10 million business than like even a $1 million business. I'd love to hear something.
And that's good. Again, I like the idea of, business coaches going to some bigger clients. I don't know that I would make that my ideal client and my target audience, but I think there's a lot of power in going to work with, seeing how a $10 million is going to operate. I just say this: whenever you take on a new coaching client, regardless of the advice that, I give or anybody else gives you, you've got to establish that little red arrow. You are here, right? It's really important that you understand that as you go in. If you want to do a bang up job, especially remember what, the recency bias, right? Again, if you do something of tremendous value very quickly with your coaching client for a long time to come. Well, actually, okay, so here's what I would do. I would go in to see a coaching client, whether it's, 300,000, a million, 10 million, 25 million or above. And there is no doubt that I want to put runs on the board immediately, right? So I've often talked about in the first 90 days of working with your coaching client, you don't really want to be overly strategic. You want to be highly tactical. And I do understand that strategy eats tactics for breakfast, right? That's obvious. But what I want to do is I want to put runs on the board quickly, because they feel like, holy smokes, this guy came into our company. We made these massive gains so quickly. For the next potentially number of years, I can be that guy where they've got, the confirmation bias in my favor, right? So that's important when you're taking on that coaching client to understand the little red arrow, they are there. And then you want to, make sure that you put some runs on the board early, regardless of the size of the company, right? And also understand that 96% of businesses don't hit $1 million, right? So when I meet a coach and they tell me that they go to 5, 10, 25, $50 million companies, I say, okay, that's great, but you're not going to scale that coaching company, right? Why? Because 4% of businesses and that's gross revenues. That's not profit. These aren't my stats. Just go look them up, right? So 96% don't hit a million. So when you're going to those bigger companies, you're going to a 0.000 whatever percentage of the, business population. So I would, whether, or 0.0001 of the population, right? Like you're going to a very select group. So I think that if you're looking to really grow your coaching company, you might want to be thinking about going to smaller companies. Again, little red arrow, you are here. But I'll just tell you this, big companies make the same mistake that little ones make. And that's that they want to hit, like the little guy wants to hit $1 million, right? And the big company wants to hit 10 million. And then when they hit 10 million, believe me, their goal is to get to 50, 25 million, 50 million, and 100 million. And here's the thing. Here's what I would encourage everybody to be thinking. Like, do you want to get big or do you want to get rich? And I want you to think of this both for your own coaching company and, this $10 million company that you're talking about here. Because see, growing your company to become big is really ego driven, right? Like the number of countries, the number of cities, the number of offices, obviously the revenue, $1, $5, $10 million, lots of zeros. Like, here's maybe what I'll look. Let me give you an example of two companies. Okay. In fact, if you are anywhere where you can pump these numbers into your phone or onto a piece of paper, even better. But just picture this, right? So I'm just going to give you two companies. You got a column on the left and a column on the right. Okay. Which one? My question is, which one of these guys do you want to own? Company number one is, let's say, like you're going to have $50 million of revenue. Okay. They got 100 staff in order to realize that 50 million. Their expenses are, say, 45 million. And then so if you do those numbers, you got $50 million of revenue and you got $45 million of expenses. Very simply, some very basic math, will see you that you netted $5 million with this particular client. And then let's assume that individual company impacted 500,000 people, because as coaches, I know that we're into impact generally. So let's make sure that we understand that we're making a tremendous impact. This company is not just about making money, right? So 50 million revenue, 100 staff, 45 million in expenses, and they netted 5 million. There would be a lot of other factors and data that we'd bring in there, but just real simple ones. Okay, so that's the company on the left. We'll call that company number one. And then company number two has $10 million of revenue. Okay, remember, company number one had 50 million. These guys have got 10 million, significantly less, right? Only takes 10 staff, okay, to achieve that 10 million. And then they've got $5 million of expenses. So what is it? Well, again, they're $5 million net, right? So it's these two businesses have both made the same amount of money, right? And we'll assume that they impacted, as in company number two, 500,000 people, right? Okay, so what's the difference? If you were to ask me 5 years ago which company I wanted to own, with 100% certainty, I wanted the company with $50 million of revenue. Why? Lots of zeros, lots of staff, lots of action. Oh my gosh, we're going to be able to impact everybody. But the difference here, guys, like there's $40 million of expenses different between the two, right? Again, which business do you want to own? And now understanding, accounting and small business finance, and have, again, just, educated myself, let's just call it. I got to tell you, I would imagine if you're listening to this too, there's a really good chance you're loving the $50 million company as opposed to the $10 million, but they both netted the same. The big difference is $40 million of expenses, and $40 million of expenses absolutely matters, right? Okay, what am I getting at? The mistake. And as we're coaching these guys and we're guiding these folks, and again, this is going to take not just basic math, but this is going to take education, and there will be psychology on steroids involved in helping them see their way clear to understand that, a company that nets the same with $40 million less expenses is a significantly better business model to have. And there would also be if you were to take company number one and turn it into company number two, I mean, this would not happen overnight, right? But the bottom line, and understanding they both impacted 500,000 people, which is, again, absolutely critical, right? So I don't know. So the question there is, do you want to become big? Do you want to become rich? A better example, I think, for everybody listening is just taking on the client, and they say that they want to hit $1 million of revenue. And then after about 30 seconds of questioning them, they don't realize that, you could hit $1 million of revenue. You could hit $1 million of revenue and lose 40 grand. You could, do $1 million of revenue and make 40 grand and have really, really slim margins. You want to be careful with that. You want to build a company with massive profit margins, making a huge return. And that's the better business for them to be owning. Most likely, again, little red arrow, you are here and then what they're going to try and accomplish. And maybe there's some reasons that we're not thinking of now that they'll be able to convince you that company number 2 is going to be right for them, and that's fine. But that right there, I think, is a beauty example for building a big company, and how their current roadmap is not so good. The other thing is, like, if you introduce me to a $10 million company, I will introduce you to an HR company. I think I normally actually say $25 million is an HR company, but at the $10 million mark, they absolutely are as well. And what I mean by that, like, they are basically in the game of, basically, taking on staff. Your greatest successes will come through other people. So you got to make sure at that stage, we're talking about scale and really growing, they're going to have to surround themselves from some winning people. What other advice would I give them, for a $10 million company? Like, maybe even, and depends upon the company, right? But let's just, like, decentralization, when they get to that point, debatably earlier, but this is, again, not a black and white one, but like, decentralization is something that a lot of larger companies don't do. Okay, so what do I mean by decentralization? It's pretty straightforward. So let's say, and this is what, Google and Amazon, again, you see these companies and, $1 trillion operations. How have they done it? Absolutely. Decentralization is a big part of what they do. So if I were to give you a real simple black and white example, back in the day, you go to Las Vegas, you go to a casino, and you'd look at their books, and they've got a casino, and then they've got a retail shop, and then they got a restaurant, and they just basically clump all the numbers into the same, the same profit and loss, and basically, here are our numbers. You go there today because they've advanced and competition has increased madly. What they do is they decentralize it. Okay, so the casino has got a separate set of books. It's got a general manager who's responsible for X, Y, Z and their numbers, right? And then they've got a restaurant, and they used to just comp. If you went to Las Vegas back in the day, you used to comp everything, and the restaurant was practically free, right? Well, that's no longer the case. You go to the casino, and often they'll have, some of the most expensive and high priced, seafood and, steak restaurants ever. So basically, decentralization is that the restaurant has got its own general manager, its own set of books, and, they're answerable to the CEO to say, okay, well, where are we at? Each month, definitely each quarter, analyzing the books to see where they're at, and they need to be progressing and growing, and making business decisions based on that. And then they've got the retail arm, right? Like, again, they've got Louis Vuitton and Rolex and whatever else. They need to know that is a separate category. They have decentralized it. They got their separate books, and that's how they're deciding whether or not it is and is not working. So, or not that it is and is not working, but which parts of the business are growing, where they should be putting more resources, if they've got a restaurant that's absolutely crushing it, and the general manager has got a lot to do with that. Well, guess what? They take him from the restaurant, and often he ends up in the casino because he's doing a bang up job. And, so that's decentralization, Road Dog. That's, again, I think that is something that coaches need to understand as a business model, as they're coming into these larger companies. And, the question is, do they have that done? And the real, like a car lot, have been, you might have at some stage, what happened is the service department became significantly more profitable than selling the cars. Whereas back in the day, you used to buy a car off of a car lot. They didn't have a service department, right? Now they would never dream of operating selling a car without having the service department. And if they don't have it, they're missing out madly, right? So I think that's powerful. A $10 million company also, like, getting everybody on the same page. We talked about this within a few podcasts back, but absolutely critical. Like, trying to keep everybody on the same page is ridiculous. You have got to keep meetings to an absolute minimum. It's not to say you don't have meetings, because that would be ridiculous, right? But you want to keep them to an absolute minimum, and you want to have the number of people in those meetings nice and tight, nice and small. Because all of a sudden it's just back and forth. Everybody just starts, communicating with everyone, trying to keep everybody on the same page, which again is really a waste of time and never really going to happen anyways, because things move so quick in a company like that, or at least they should be. So that's something to be very cautious of for sure. Like Amazon as an example, what they did with their small groups is like they create what Amazon has done. Like they have competition within the company, right? So like imagine like, let's just say there's $1 million up for grabs of resources to do, $1 million for a certain amount of teams. Well, they're all fighting for that $1 million. So like one group could go head and shoulders above the other, and they could end up with $800,000 of the million. In other words, it's not just 10 groups and you all get $100,000 each, which is where you'd start, by the way. He'd give everybody the same amount of resources, but it's like, what can you do with that $100,000? And then he's got teams competing with teams. And this is a big part of how Amazon does it. So the difference between what I just said and what the average company is doing, what they're doing is they're competing with outside forces, right? So like that's Google competing with Bing and Bing competing with Google search, right? Well, that's not what Amazon is doing to a large degree. Internally, they've actually got their groups within the company competing with one another for a limited amount of resources. And again, in a lot of those groups, you got the 10 groups all given $100,000. One group end up with 800,000. Well, what happens is a lot, like let's say 3 of the 10 end up literally disbanding and disappearing. And either the guys are laid off or they take the winners from that group and they move them into the group with 800,000, the 800,000. Being cognizant of the fact that they don't let that group grow too big. So anyways, I'm not sure if that is something, again, you could be looking at with sometimes some of these, bigger companies. And concentration risk, again, is something, if they've got too much, concentration risk is that if you have one product, one staff member, one client that's taking up too much of your company, an accountant will tell you, look, you got concentration risk here. You need to be cautious, you need to be cautious here. Question is, do they, are they putting too much emphasis and not enough emphasis on growth and where the market is growing and where they're currently at? And I see coaches make this mistake all the time, right? They want to go to that, $1 million or that $10 million, $25 million company. They need a higher level TLC. So what happens is you have a business coach who's only got 4 clients, and his income is divided up, or her income is divided up within only those 4 clients. You lose one and you take a massive hit. And that is not a business that you're ever going to be able to, certainly not scale, but you're not going to be able to sell it for anything, because once you disappear, it's going to be game over. So this is why we have a program where we help folks build teams of 10 coaches and far beyond. And that is all of a sudden so they can start building an asset. So without going too far into that one, if I was a business coach out there, I would be very cautious to take on too limited number of these larger clients, because again, I feel like that would be a business where it's got a glass ceiling big time, and you're not going to be able to, if your goal is to build a 7-figure coaching business, there's a really good chance you're not going to be able to do it with that model. You want to go to the smaller. If you want to scale a coaching company, you have to get your head around the fact that you've got to go to smaller companies, right? Because again, why? 96% of the marketplace doesn't hit $1 million. So therefore, if you're going to, 10, $25 million companies, your pond that you're fishing in has only got so many fish, and therefore you'll battle the scale. So, and then not to mention most companies that get the 5, let's say, 10, $25 billion, they've got a lot of their people in place, right? Are those the guys that are just going to show up to your local seminar at the Chamber of Commerce? And the answer is highly likely, although stranger things have happened, and don't think that it won't. But would I be building a business around that? The answer is no. So anyway, so there you go, Road Dog. Not sure if that, those are some of the things that I'd be thinking about with a larger company. So there you go. What do you think?
So we've had a question that's been that's been on our list here for a couple of weeks, and I'm being generous. I think it's been kind of playing and dodging us here for a bit, and we've probably got time for one more question here. So I want to get this question onto the frickin' podcast, because oh my god, get to show up for another week. And it's a great question. It's a fantastic question because we get this a lot, right? Like the question is, should I build my low-end program or my high-end program first? Fantastic question. And I'm sure that's on a lot of people's mind. Well, first off, let me ask you, do people even have two programs? The bulk of coaches you speak to, or are they just more worried about, here's my one program? Right?
Yeah.
You always talk about the Tony Robbins thing, right? So can you kind of elaborate on that?
Or they have too many, right? Like again, see what you don't want to do is you don't want to sit in. Here's a big sales mistake that I've seen coaches make over the years is that you've got too many options. And then when you give somebody, a number of options, you give them like a free way to say to you, look, let me think about it. You've given me really lots to think about, some good ideas here. Let me leave that flyer with me or leave XYZ with me. I'll go away. I'll talk to my wife. I'll talk to my manager. I'll talk to my accountant, whatever. And then I'll give you an answer, right? So providing too many options is going to provide you too many maybes. So that's, again, I think that's a very important one when you're sitting down, be very limited, very direct. Just grab them and say, this is where we're going. But that being said, so low end or high end program, again, the question needs to be, what do you want? Not what do I do, which is a real important one. Some folks want to build, that $97 online program and then not really do anything, right? They've got that, they've been sold it's a bit like multiple streams of income and The Secret and everything else. Of course, it's sexy and it's delusional. It's like, sign me up. Oh my God, all I have to do is just drive traffic to this $97 program, not speak to anybody and make all this money and hang out in the Bahamas. And again, if you introduce me to somebody who's actually pulled that off, I will show you the anomaly big time, like very, very rare. So you need to understand that. And then the attitude of, I don't really want to talk to anybody, I don't really want to do anything, I would, again, challenge you big time on that one. Like, is that really the best roadmap for your coaching company and, for you to be this kick-ass coach that you probably hope to be? So like online training with no accountability, again, problem is you plug in all the people that you want. It really doesn't work that well. So if it's a flop, so the question is, if it doesn't really work, then is it going to work for it doesn't work for your clients. Is it really going to work for you, right? Long term? Because again, do you want to get rich for a minute or do you want to get rich long term? And the answer to that's absolutely obvious, right? You got to make sure you're building something that works, right? Painfully obvious. So that so let's just go, it's about data. It's just, remember, successful business is just math. So you could get at $97 a month, let's say 100 a month, you need 100 clients to make $120,000 of gross revenues, right? Well, if you sign up 10 clients at $1,000 a month, that's $120,000 of gross revenues. Which business model is going to be easier for you to pull off? And then the question is, of the 100, what I'm saying is correct, do your own homework, but I can tell you this is what you'll find. Plugging people into $100 a month programs online and providing no accountability, it falls over in that the clients don't get the results. Then again, which business model would you prefer? And all you've got to do, servicing 10 coaching clients is not exactly an enormous amount of work, right? So I think that understanding, just go into the math. I know that it's sexy and delusional and, paint the picture of plugging all these people into $97 a month and they pay forever. I'd say, be a little bit cautious with that one. I answer that one with ridiculous consistency, right? And then and by the way, if you don't want to be fighting, the stats, and of course there's always the anomaly, and then someone else is going to say, yeah, but Buddy has this program and he's absolutely crushing it. There's always going to be that one, but just, be cautious of that one because again, you want to play the percentages in business, but also I'd just say that, what do you really want? And what I have found over the years, of speaking to, literally, thousands and thousands, to be 10,000s of, coaches by now, we really want to make $100,000 a year and then call our own shots, right? We want to have a window to be able to earn significantly more. like the 250, the 500,000, and the million. We want to know that we can get there, but also ultimately we want to make $100,000 a year, call our own shots, again, attend birthday parties, go to Mexico, go where we want, when we want, at Christmas time, be able to take a couple weeks off, in the summer, take a couple weeks off and go with family, etc. So understanding, remember, you got to establish what is it that we want as opposed to instead of what do I do, what do I want? I think that there's huge power in establishing that. Remember the little red arrow, you are here. So yeah, I just, understand. So bottom line is, which one do you do? This is the question. I think I'm beating around the bush here a little bit. Tony Robbins has a program. You should have, we'll call it a $1,000 unit of sale, or again, that would be your $100 a month, would be $1,200 a year. Just let's go to Tony Robbins. He's kind of like the mecca of what we do. And now he has got his $1,000 program, roughly, might be a little more, a little bit less, depending upon when you sign up. But that's what he calls UPW, and that's a 4-day program. And it's basically like his starter kit to get going. You pay $1,000, you come, you jump around the room, high five everybody, and you walk away with, I think, is an unbelievable experience, right? But on day 2, what he does is he invites you in, he basically brings you guys up, or he presents to the entire room his $10,000 unit of sale. He doesn't do it on day 1. He does it on day 2. There's a reason behind that, right? When you're amped up, he doesn't do it first thing in the morning. He does it at about lunchtime when everybody's, jumping up and down and feeling like, they're going to kick some backside, and this is the place to be, and this is the environment they want to stay in. So he brings you up and he sells you into his $10,000 program, right? That's Tony Robbins University or something like that. And then the night of day 2, towards the end of the day, and again, he's a pretty clever guy, and he knows how to work out who in the room of, he's got a room of 5,000 people. He knows how to pull the people out of that room who have the higher end, that have the money. He puts you into another room and sells you into a $100,000 platinum program. And then he takes you from the $100,000 platinum program and sells you into the $250,000 titanium or whatever it is, right? So what I'm getting at there is Tony Robbins has the introductory program, and then he's got all his higher end programs as well. For you listening, and you probably don't have, the Tony Robbins business model, obviously, or likely. So again, in order to get to your $100,000, your $250,000, yes, you should have that $100 program, but basically it's a feeder to your higher end stuff, right? It's not the way to riches. Tony Robbins he didn't build his $100 program or his $1,000 program, UPW, and expect to make all the money there. If you really understand the model, like when you hire out Madison Square Garden and whatnot, and put on the show that he puts on, believe me, these things don't run at a huge profit. There's a reason why he fills the entire room with volunteers. So where he makes his real money, where the magic happens, is in those higher end programs. So what I'm getting at, Road Dog, is yes, it's a really good idea to have the $100 program, which conveniently, like anybody who works with us, we build that program for them, right? Like you can't work with us and not have a membership site that's $100 a month. In fact, our clients can decide to charge more. That's up to them. But, if it's just a templated amount, is $97 if it's not touched. So we provide that for them because we know that they need it, right? But are you do we encourage you to go find 100 people at $97 a month as your primary activity Monday to Friday to get going? And the answer is absolutely not. You'd be crazy to. And why? Because to convince somebody to spend $97 is not that much different than convincing somebody to spend $12,000 and above. It's the same effort to get in front of them, right? So basically, Road Dog, yes, you should have that lower end program. It goes without saying, but you got to be cautious. You got to be careful to think that that's the Mac Daddy and that's going to provide your riches. That Tony Robbins does not make all of his money on his $100 a month or $1,000 program. He makes all of his money in the $10,000 the $10,000 university, the $100,000 platinum, and then the higher level groups. This is where the magic is made. So Road Dog, that's the answer. And then if you were to ask, which one do you start with? Again, I got to establish the little red arrow, you are here, but I'll assume like the first question will be, well, where are you at financially? do you have, 6 to 12 months to build this thing up without having to earn an enormous amount of money, right? And if the answer to that is yes, well, then by all means, let's really get this built up, and let's think of it as building a house. You really want to build the foundation. Tony Robbins, the foundation of Tony Robbins's business is the people that have come in to buy UPW. Like that's how he brings them in to spend. Like, Oprah Winfrey's been to UPW. The biggest names in the world have been to UPW, and they go sit in the first few rows, and he makes sure that they don't get bothered, right? But then he moves you into the higher end stuff. So if you don't have a huge amount of runway, and again, this is what I combat and hear all the time. If you don't have a huge amount of runway and you're going to build your $97 program, it's going to end poorly, right? The end. And the other thing I think that is super relevant, what we encourage, in fact, we talked about it a little bit earlier when we did our pre-call here, Road Dog. We talked to one of our clients, and he's gone to the chamber, and remember, you want to be Santa Claus, not the Grinch. The magic of having that $100 program, that lower end program that's all automated. It's again, videos online. It's emails that come out. It is, videos that come out and e-lessons that come out. Like when you've got that, what you've got is a tool that you could give away. So imagine going to the Chamber of Commerce and being able to donate 10 of these memberships. Let's say at full retail, they're $500 a month, $6,000 a year. That would be $60,000 of value that you're giving to the chamber up front. Or let's say that we're only going to go at $100 a month with the online program that we build for anybody listening. It's $97 when you go to it online, but then there's some group coaching and some other magic that we throw in with it that brings it up into a $500 program. Once again, it's all automated. So fundamentally, it could either be sold as a $1,000 program or a $6,000 program per year. So let's say that you're more comfortable at the $1,000 level. When you're giving it away at the chamber, 10 memberships is still $10,000 of value that you're giving away to the chamber, right? So that's Santa Claus, as opposed to most people are going to the chamber and they don't even want to buy a membership, right? Which is a whopping roughly $500, right? So they don't want to buy the membership. And then they, and then it's like, well, how many clients can you send to me, right? And that is just a horrible, roadmap. So it's Santa Claus versus the Grinch is the bottom line. So when you've got that, so you could imagine Tony Robbins, how often do you think he gives away his $250,000 program? Or do you think he gives away UPW, right? Like, do you think Oprah spent 5 cents to come to Unleash the Power Within, like his 4-day event? And the answer is obviously not. So he puts them into that. They get exposed to him. They see the energy. They see the impact. They see the way he handles the room, and then they want to spend more money with him, right? So this is what happens. So Road Dog, answer to the question is you want to have both, but if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of runway and you got to make some revenue, you'd be crazy to build the $97 program online, because it would just, again, it will end poorly with about 99% predictability. And you and I have seen it all the time. So that's the answer to that one, buddy. But they should have all, but understanding that, look at Tony Robbins and go, I just explained it. He's got his $1,000 program. It's called UPW. That is the foundation of his house. On day 2, you see, notice, like when you guys probably heard me talk about when I ask for a referral, I don't ask for a referral at a specific meeting or at a specific date. What I would do is I ask for a referral when my client is amped up and they've had some success. That's when I ask for the referral. So it's like timing, right? So Tony Robbins knows on day 2 at lunchtime, if you're right for this environment, you've either left and gone home, or you're in this environment going, holy cow, this is the kind of circle. These are the kind of people I want to be hanging with in the future. So then he brings you up and invites you into the university. Like he sells it at a specific, when you're in state, right? Very important. But anyway, so then he goes $1,000, and then that's roughly $10,000. And then he's got the $100,000 program that he sells you on day 2, the night of. And then he's got the $250,000 program. And each program provides you a little bit more access to Tony Robbins, right? Like when you spend 10 grand to do his university, you don't get any one-to-one time with Tony Robbins, right? But obviously at 100,000 and then 250, like at those higher numbers, there's less people buying those programs. There's less people in them. So you've got a more intimate experience with Tony Robbins. And we all know that that's ultimately what people want. So Road Dogg, that's the answer, man. They should have both, but if they don't have runway, absolutely go with the higher end one first and then build up some runway and then think about the $97. Hope that makes sense, bud.
Speaking of throwing in a little magic, sound like you got some pots and pans going on there. Just remember, I'm not a big fan of onions, so when you're making
that was my hockey stick. That was actually did you hear that? I'm like, oh my God.
And here I thought you were cooking me lunch. Hold the onions. That's all I got to say about that. Hey, listen there, big now that you are literally a big shooter with your hockey stick in your hand, can you close us out with giving us our listeners the one thing that they can do today?
One thing. I think that just think company one, company two. Do you want to get big or do you want to get rich? Did your client want to get big or do they want to get rich? Getting big is about ego, number of cities, number of countries, big numbers on the line, the revenue line. I'd be cautious with that. I think that there's huge power. So for a business coach, again, you want to make, 100, 250 grand a year, have an easy lifestyle, low number of staff, low number of commitments, lots of flexibility. Like that's a killer life, right? Do you want to build a big company or do you want to have a kick-ass life? And I think that, there's huge power in that and messed up royally by your clients and by us as a business coaching community because, we're looking for those, lots of cities, lots of clients, lots of countries, lots of this, lots of revenue, et cetera. So that's what I would say. Do you want to get big or do you want to get rich, in the words of Keith Cunningham? So there you go, bud.
Beauty. Well, everybody, thanks again for tuning into another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill and not the Grinch, the Santa Claus of business coaching, my boy King Karl. I like how that's shifted, by the way. It's a beautiful thing. You keep talking about the Grinch, so it's a crazy thing. But anyways, if you're not on the inside, Karl keeps alluding to it throughout the podcast of, the pre-show with a tight group of people inside of our, we'll call it inner circle, just to make it sound more sexy. If you're not part of that or you're just not getting his daily emails, be sure to go to focused.com and get more information, get subscribed today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone that you think would make a great coach. Someone that's a great salesperson, highly motivated type, fan of Tony Robbins, fan of Tom Brady, those types of people, Karl's best friends. And of course, we'd appreciate, if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes and Spotify give an absolutely insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave us a review if you like what you've heard. And on that note, that's it. I can't believe it for yet another week. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.